Earlier this offseason, I had made the point that this was going to be a critical offseason for Andrew Berry, that this was going to be an offseason that would serve as a test of if Andrew Berry should be the guy to be the general manager of the Cleveland Browns long term. And the reason I said that was there were a lot of landmines that Andrew Berry could step on and blow up if he wasn't careful with how he handled this offseason. The one thing we knew off the bat, the Browns had the number 2 overall pick. A lot of responsibility with that, right? And with responsibility comes danger. You can screw up a team with the number 2 overall pick. You can change a team's future dramatically. You can set the team up for success with a number 2 overall pick. It is a massive resource in your hands. And like with any massive resource, whether it be money, oil, whatever, it can be used for brilliance. It can be used for great amounts of damage. So there was that. That made the offseason critical no matter what. Not only did he have to deal with that, this would be the first offseason since the Deshaun Watson trade where it was obvious that the team had to move on from Deshaun Watson, right? They traded for Deshaun Watson in 2022. Clearly, they're thinking he's going to be the starter for the next 5 years. 2023, they're still in the belief that that's going to happen. 2024 offseason, again, still in the belief that they can make it work. After 2 Achilles tears, it was obvious that the next era of Cleveland Browns quarterbacking is something that you're going to have to focus on. It might not have to start this offseason, but it's something you got to look at clearly, because you can't rely on Deshaun Watson being your starter anymore, nor should you rely on Deshaun Watson being your starter anymore. So that's a whole nother thing that makes this offseason critical, right? You got the moving on from an expensive quarterback. You have the 2nd overall pick. And then right at the end of the season, you get thrown the curveball of Myles Garrett, your franchise player, requesting a trade. These 3 things can be handled in ways that can make the team better in 5 years. These things can be handled in ways that can spell disaster for the franchise for the next 20 years. Real quick, before I continue on with this video, I want to give a quick shout out to the sponsor for today's video, Sleeper.
Sleeper is the #1 fantasy sports app. It pays to know sports. Pick more or less on top players. Your first pick is on us, so start winning now. Play in Texas, Georgia, Minnesota, and 27 more states. Pick anytime across all sports, pregame or live. Over 10 million players are already on Sleeper. Make your picks count. Score up to 1,000 times your cash. Join today. Get up to $100 credit using code WORSTTAKE. Call your shot on Sleeper. Download now.
How the Browns handle this offseason is going to be critical to the trajectory of this team over the long term, because this is one of the most critical off seasons that a football team's going to have this season. Well, a football team has had this season is the one that Andrew Berry had to go through. So I've been saying for a very long time, because I've been aware of this, that this offseason is the most critical test of Andrew Berry's ability, because a lot of this was going to require some of the stuff that Andrew Berry is supposedly here for, right? The whole reason for sticking with Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski is the Browns wanted to move away from being this reactionary franchise that freaks out after a bad season, that fires their coaches, that resets the plan. That is what Jimmy Haslam wants to move away from. He wants to be a structured organization that moves with a plan, and that's not just sitting at the edge of their seat making decisions as time goes by. That's what these guys are here for. So when you have a situation like Myles Garrett pop up, it's critical. that you don't handle that in a super reactionary way that causes you to lose a franchise player. When you have the number 2 overall pick, it's important that you don't fall into reactionary narratives about the draft and force yourself to reach on a quarterback at 2 when you don't believe in a quarterback at 2, or a player at 2 when you don't believe at a player at 2, when there are other options available. This was going to be a test for this team. A lot of things could have led to a lot of different GMs making a lot of different decisions. We don't know if Andrew's going to pass this test yet because it's far too early to tell. But what I can evaluate today is how good of a job do I think Andrew has done, given what we know right now, with the test in front of him. Again, we have limited information. This is not going to be the definitive word on if Andrew has passed this offseason. The definitive word about this offseason will be known years down the road. But we can talk about it now. Let's talk about the Myles situation, right? Because that was the first landmine that they could have fell at. And I think what gives this Myles conversation a lot more perspective is seeing some of the other holdouts that happen in the NFL. You know, some of them got handled favorably for the team, like the Bengals Sam Hubbard thing, but it was a lot more messy, the relationship between the team and the player. Some of these things completely imploded, like Micah Parsons and the Dallas Cowboys. You know, if you would have told me after the Super Bowl or before the Super Bowl that a franchise edge rusher was going to be traded to the Green Bay Packers, I'd have been terrified that we just traded Myles Garrett to the Green Bay Packers. I would have had no inkling that the Dallas Cowboys would have done something like that. But the Browns avoided that. We can argue whether it would have been the right thing or not. I think it's pretty clear that trading Myles would have been the wrong thing to do because, yeah, what you would have got a first-round pick or 2 first-round picks and a player. But the Packers aren't going to be bad anytime soon. You're talking about late first-round picks. You know, ironically enough, the only way I could justify Myles being traded is if you traded him to a team like maybe the Jacksonville Jaguars, who aren't guaranteed to be good even if they have Myles Garrett. That was the only justification for that, because I did recognize even during that whole saga, the Browns need a quarterback. And if you could trade Myles Garrett to get a quarterback, you're gonna be willing to consider that if you think a real quarterback answer is available. The problem is you're not gonna answer quarterback by trading Myles Garrett to a good team, because none of those teams are gonna be in a position to give you a pick that's gonna get you a quarterback, other than like being a part of packaging your pick to try to get a quarterback, right? So that's the situation that Myles was in that Andrew Berry was in with Myles Garrett. He holds his line firm, and I think this was a big message that the organization sent when Myles Garrett was trying to force his way out, and he was trying to talk to Jimmy to kind of circumvent Andrew, and Jimmy didn't let that happen. I thought that showed tremendous growth by Jimmy, because we know throughout the past, Jimmy has been able to be manipulated by people getting a personal audience with him. This was the whole Hugh Jackson era, where it was like Hugh Jackson was reporting to Jimmy, and so was the general manager. So you get these like little power struggles that happen every year with Hugh Jackson. This was a constant problem for the Cleveland Browns under Jimmy Haslam, that Jimmy would appeal to the player, not let the general manager do his job, and create these rifts. Jimmy, for the first time since he's been the owner in Cleveland Browns, declined that opportunity. He sat his way out of it, and he let Andrew handle it. And then days later, the Browns announced an extension for Myles Garrett that at the time was the highest paid non-quarterback contract for a player, but has now been surpassed 4 times, to the point where Micah Parsons makes $7 million more a year than Myles Garrett. Think about that. The Browns now look like they got a deal for Myles Garrett, considering what these other non-quarterbacks have gotten since the Myles Garrett deal was done. So in my opinion, you got the Myles Garrett holdout situation handled before OTAs even started. So you got it out the way quick. It never became a storyline. It's basically a footnote to this offseason. I'm pretty sure people are reminded that this even happened by me bringing it up. And then you got him done early, which proved to be a great ideal because getting Myles Garrett's contract early meant that you weren't paying $47 million for him, you paid $40 million for him, right? So if you would have waited till the training camp, you would have been paying $47 million for Myles Garrett. But since you didn't wait, since you signed him the second you could, you got his deal done early, you saved yourself $7 million. Keeping a guy, a franchise player who requested a trade, already a positive to me. Getting that guy eventually $7 million under what the market is for the best edge rusher in the NFL, that's a home run, right? So that to me is a huge pass. How he handled the Myles Garrett situation, I got no critiques. He handled that very well. The Browns handled that very well. And it's incredible that like the Browns won't get credit for any of that. But like people will still like justify the Cowboys basically imploding under mismanagement with Jerry Jones and it costing them a franchise defensive player, Michael Parsons. But I digress. So that's the Myles situation, right? Number 2 overall pick. Now, I wasn't happy at the time that the Browns traded the number 2 overall pick. But when I look at it and I consider that, hey, I would have been willing to consider moving Myles if I thought that it could get the Browns a pick in 2026 that could possibly net them a quarterback, right? When I think about that and I think about the fact that the Browns were able to get that pick from the Jacksonville Jaguars and all they really had to do was move back 5 spots and take a player that everybody seems very happy with in Mason Graham. And they also got an extra second-round pick. I can't sit here and be upset at that move. And while it didn't give me the immediate satisfaction I wanted from the draft, I can understand that in the long term, this can end up being the best thing for them. This is why passing this test of the offseason is going to take more than 1 year to figure out. It's going to take multiple years to figure out because we got to figure out what the Browns do with that pick. We got to figure out what kind of opportunities are netted because of that pick. We also got to figure out how good Travis Hunter's going to be. You know, what's the opportunity cost there? Right, between Travis Hunter and Mason Graham. Is it significant? Is it insignificant? We'll figure that out as time goes along. But being able to keep Myles Garrett under contract, bring him in $7 million under market, and then also getting that first-round pick that could net you the quarterback without having to do anything with Myles, how can I see that as anything other than a win right now? Now, again, if Travis Hunter ends up being Shohei Ohtani and there's no quarterbacks in next year's draft, we're going to look at it a little differently. But given what we know right now, given the fact that we have heard great things about Mason Graham in camp, and that's another thing we're going to have to talk about, you know, it makes you feel a lot better about that move. And then we go to the draft. The draft is going to be incredibly important for Andrew Berry because his drafts haven't been great, but the main justification for that has been that he hasn't had the picks because of the Watson trade. Well, now he has the picks. So what does he do with the picks? Now, we don't know what these rookies are going to turn into right now, but what I can say is we have heard positive things about every rookie that's been in camp. Every single one, we have heard something positive. We have seen something positive tangibly from these guys in a game, right? Mason Graham, we've seen it. Carson Schlesinger, we've heard it and seen it. Dylan Sampson, Dylan Gabriel, Shador Sanders, and Harold Fainen Jr., right? All these guys have given you something to look at in the preseason and get excited about. None of these guys are giving you Siaki Ika face, right? Where you're like, what did we do here? Even the guy we expected to give us Siaki Ika face, Dylan Gabriel, he's actually been pretty impressive. So all those things considered, you got to look at this draft class, and at the very least, you can say all these picks make sense. We'll see what Quincy looks like once he gets on the field. But this is somebody that, you know, people who you respect their opinion about running backs, especially Maurice Jones-Drew is one of them, said that this is one of the best 5 running backs in the class, and he's going to be day 1 pro ready. So, you know, we'll see what Quinshawn is, but it's not like Quinshawn's some scrub. Maybe you wanted Travion Henderson over him, but it's not like this dude is projected to be a bum or anything like that, or that he looked like a bum in OTAs, because he looked pretty good in OTAs. He just hasn't been able to be on the field during training camp because of a legal situation. If we're looking at these critical things, right, the draft, Myles Garrett, moving off this Watson era, getting on to the next, and we're looking at the job that Andrew Berry has done this offseason. As of right now, I have to give him a proving grade because he's done what we've wanted him to do. We'll see what that means truly in a few years. We'll see if he's actually passed the test in a few years. But as of right now, just looking at the offseason in retrospect, I'm happy with how he handled it. We'll see what happens. We'll see how it turns out. That's my thoughts on Andrew Berry. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.